All right, guys, good morning to you. Sam with you. What are we, Wednesday, January 17th. And had some members interested in a look at SiaCoin. It's kind of interesting today in the midst of a lot of volatility. This is performing quite nicely. So there's some good things to learn here. So when you first bring up a chart like that, okay, when you see something like this, right? You see how we have this perfect. You could call it resistance becoming support. You know, as an Elliott trader, I'm going to tell you that that doesn't happen randomly. So immediately that gets my interest. So if we look here, and I've done this coin before, this is a strong project. So it hasn't been around that long actually. So you see here we had the initial pump and then the long sell off. Right, we see it all over crypto. That's a very common pattern. We eventually get a base, and then we start to move up. Now, maybe we have a new trend. It certainly looks that way. So is there a count here? Well, I think we can pretty reasonably get a count on this. Let's go over and check over here just for consistency. SiaCoin, you see 68 on the scale here. Huge interest amongst the development community. So great project here. Almost all of it's traded against Bitcoin. And all of that, well, 78% of it is on Bittrex, which is why I've got it over here on Bittrex. So I've got a 2-hour chart here. We can go down to let's go down to the 1 hour. And all I've done is just wicked off this last low here, which seems to be the meaningful pivot from whence we begin this new trend. So right off the bat, now this is, about as easy as they get, right? So when you see this, you don't have to do a whole lot of work to look at that and go, okay, well, that sure looks like a 3, 4, 5. Right? So that's one, a 6-year-old could spot that one. So we look at that, but just, it's the same process, guys, over and over, same thing. Okay, so we wick off the 1, right? So if you didn't catch that, which I didn't, and despite the perfect symmetry there, this was a rather deep retracement for a 4. So statistically speaking, that's deep for a 4, but this is what makes it so technical. We don't overlap the 1, and again, that just does not happen randomly. So we can look here and do some of the things that we will typically do to help identify. So if you weren't sure, so we can see the oscillator here is absolutely peaking here. So strongest move, the largest price range, pretty reasonable to anticipate that that's your third wave. Here we come for the 4 now. We don't overlap, so we still have an impulsive wave structure here. So we stay out of a diagonal, which is always good, right? It just shows more strength. The trend is fairly well established, despite how deep this goes. So let's just check a few of these pivots and make sure that they look good to us. So if that's the 1. Here's the 50, right? That's what you're expecting. The 2, anywhere from the 50 to 618, that's the high probability zone. And we get a little spiky coming out of there, but man, here's the first algo target. There's the reaction. We blow right through. We go all the way to the negative 1.618, which is certainly an extreme for an algo target. Now, we can also measure this in Elliott fib relationship numbers and see what do we get here. So if I pull this over here, so you can see I'm taking the length of the 1, projecting from the 2. Here's 200%. So you would get what you'd call a pretty strong confluence zone up here, where you have the negative 618 being the dominant, 200 not as often seen, but 200% the length of the 1 wave. Again, would certainly support the idea that that's your third wave. So with that identified, then we start working our way down. So we can pull some of this off. Now we're looking for 3 waves here. So so first thing we want to do is, we know we're going to get an A wave. So we look there for that's the low that we get, and where do we go? Right into the golden zone, right into the hot spot, right to the tick, right in between the 618 and the 65. Down we go, and we get to and through the negative 23.6. So pretty. A nice trade here for Algorithms made money there. Ran it through, and for whatever reason, we get this last little push down here before we get the reaction back up. So taking that off, we can label this now. So it has everything that we'd look for. So we've got, you'd have to label it. So you've got A, B, here's your C. So we'll pull this, I guess we'll pull this up a bit, and we'll take the 4 down. Okay, so that plays rather nicely, and we have this nice. You can see kind of this, this channel here that's developed. So you've got a lot of these highs that seem to be lining up here. I'd take it to the low. I mean, you could do that, and that so. But now that we have the low established, we get this nice range here. So, you see volume coming in. We're now in the overbought zone here on the 1 hour. So it wouldn't surprise me here that all we've done now is put in a 1. So here's the larger 5. Let me change that degree just to fatten that up a little bit so it makes more sense. So we'll go to the minuet. Okay, so there we go. So we can see now, here's where it's deep, right? So if we're looking for the fourth, where our first pull is from the second to the third high. And here's where you would be looking for it, just as we were, anticipating the pivot at the 61865 box here. We get to and through that. So this last little spike likely stopped a lot of people out. I wasn't trading it, but you had all the ingredients here that you would look for. So you had note here, we had this here. So that would have given you some structural support right there. So that's a trade that, for what I just wasn't looking at it, but that's something I definitely would have taken, and I definitely would have been stopped out. Now that's where you have to make a decision, because if you're a buyer here, if you're buying here in this zone, based off of this structural support, so that was the 1-2. So you can see it here. So this was the 1-2 of the third. So you see that subdivision that we get here. So you want, remember, waves within waves. So you can see here. Actually, now as I sit here and look at this is what I think you may have. So you get this. Here's the 4. I'd have to open this up a little bit more. So now that I take a closer look at this, I'm going to rethink my labeling here. So let's go to we'll go to subminuet there. Now note what happens here. So this choppiness here and this spike bar, this actually makes me think that we're going here. Okay, so we get this triangular pattern, because coming off of that we get this clean clean 5-wave structure into my 1-2. That actually looks better to me, and that gives us that ABC with the truncated C that we see so much in crypto. It's unusual to see it in the 2, but we are seeing it in the 2 in crypto all over the place. So that's what I actually, now that I sit here and take a closer look at this, I think that's what you have here. So with that as my 2, now this gets more technical, because here's my 786 to the tick. Here's my wave 1 high. Now this makes much more sense to me, and it looks better, and it's not just randomly in between. So we have, it's the confluence, right? So it's the combination of the algo pull here from the B high where we went low. We've got from what now looks more likely our 2 here to the tick, we've got our channel. So we've got this confluence of events here that would support that. Now it looks better as a fourth, despite the fact that, granted, that is a very deep 4, right? And I still, what you can see the reaction here. So I still would have been interested in being a buyer here, and the fact that we get a little reaction would have supported that. But again, for whatever reason, we get one last push down. It's deep for for a fourth to go to the 786, but it does not disqualify it. So it's just one of those cases where it's low percentage where we see a 4 going that deep. But there it is. It happens, right? So that's still a perfectly valid Elliott count for a 5-wave, and it does not disqualify or invalidate in any way, which makes me think this target up here looks pretty strong. So how are we going to get there? So let's take this off. So we can see we had this nice clean wave here. So this is, this is a long, that's a long fourth. Now this was relatively long as well. So it's not, that there's a symmetry there that works. So now the question is, how are we getting, if we're heading here, here's our algo target. If we're going to get there, well, we're going to likely do it in this kind of fashion. And we could do it, right? So you don't know for sure that that's your absolute top, right? So this could be going much higher. So if we look at the length of 1, so let's get a reasonable set of targets here. So we'll take, first thing we'd do for the Elliott targets, we'd take the length of 1 and we'd project it from the fourth. Okay, so here's interestingly, here's the 1618. Interesting, we go right into that box. But now we're trying to project this fifth up here. So this up here, these would be real extremes to be this hot up here to the negative 618 for that fifth off the algo pull. Here's a contender here that we see all the time for a fifth. the 2618. So pretty big fat target up here to be going for, right? So if we don't need to pull it. Yeah, so there we go. So pretty juicy target. So we're not likely to go straight up there, even though, I mean, shit, look at, I mean, we went straight up here, damn near. They're a little pullback. So there's going to be some subdivision. So it would appear here that all we've done now is put in a one wave, and the next entry would be for our second. So with this now established, we can pull this off. And now that we've got a box marked up here, so now I'd be looking at this going, okay, well, likely I've just put in a one wave, so any sort of retracement here I want to be paying attention to. So here's the zone that I want to be looking at. I like that the center line for my channel, which would be the equivalent of the median line. Remember, as I've shown you many times, the modified shift will create what's identical to a channel like this. So here it's the center line. In a pitchfork, it would be your median line. So I like this right here. I like that a lot. So there's a reasonable entry right there, looking to catch the second, going into, that would be our target for the third here. I'd want to be out if we're going to go below the 786, even though I just did a 786 here. I wouldn't want to go beyond that and play for a double bottom or give it that much room. But this might be a place where you take a partial, right? Because we've got a long-term target up here, so maybe that's a place to take a partial because you're anticipating the fourth. At some point, we're going to get a retracement here. So if we just hypothetically, if we look at that and say, okay, well, if that's my one and I'm going to be a buyer down here at the 50, well, here's my probability zone for my third, right? So that could play. We could go this high here. There's the negative 100. So now it starts to look like, man, we could get there. That could play, all just in this subdivision right here because of the length of the one. So that puts my probability zone for my third up here, which would be a new high. You anticipate the fourth. That might be a place to add, or you might take your profit here, let it retrace, look for a re-entry to catch the fifth. So that actually lays out rather nicely as a hypothetical, as a potential roadmap. It's always just the potential for it. So, right now we'd want to see this come down, offer us entry here. Here's between the 50 and the 618. So that risk reward, just so if we take it up to our 1618, now we get 5.8 to 1. I like that. What's not to like there? So now it's just a question of where can we get a clean entry here. So if we open this up a little more, let's get a closer look in here. Not quite there yet, right? So I'd be paying attention. If you look here, this one as well may not be done. So just we've had this little retracement here, but if you look closely here, you have a 1, 2. This could be a 3. We're putting in a 4. So that, I'd like to see one more kick up to complete that one, which would change our targets a little bit. So if we're going to go, let me show you what I mean. So if I break this down, let's go to a 15-minute. Okay, so now you can see it pretty clearly. So we don't know that excuse me, that one is in yet. So let's pull all this off. So potentially, right? So now this starts to make sense. So we've got a 1, 2, 3, some sort of 4 maybe going in here. That looks like an A, B, and then maybe this is our C. And then we're going to go up and finish with a fifth here. So it's the same process, right? So it's just a lower degree. So now I'm going to take the length of my 1 just as I did before, project here. Well, here's a likely target, 100% the length of the 1. So that would put this here. So let me change the degree so it makes sense. I'll change the color so you can follow it. So now we'd go here. Okay, so ideally, we get this one more kick up here to confirm that we've got a 5-wave structure, right? Because you could make the case here that you could just have an ABC. But this right here looks much more like we're trying to put in a fourth. So we want to see, ideally, you'd want to see one more push up. Now this could come down here. But we know, let's wick off that 1. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. So likely A, B, could be the C is in, but hard to call it just yet. So just as we have this identified as a reasonable target for our 1, now let's look at the algo pull on it. So just as we did before, we're going to measure from the 2. We're just doing it on a lower degree. We're going to measure from the 2. to the what appears to be our 3 high. So this kind of gets my attention. So there's the 4. So we know the high probability zone for a 4 is between 38 and the 50. So there, we got the Vegas wave coming in for a kiss right there. So you might get one more little pullback, which would set up that 4th. You know, that's not necessarily the buy I'd be looking for, because I don't see a lot of upside there to justify the risk. So as I look at that, I see a trade in the making, but maybe not just yet, because I want to confirm that I've got a 5th in. Then the trade that I would wait for is if I see that come up and complete this 5-wave structure. Now I know I've got a 1 in, and you know, that's a reasonable target there. I don't know that it stops there, but that's a reasonable target. Now, if I get that, let's just assume for the sake of the discussion that I get that 5th up there. Now I'm pulling from the low of the whole thing, because I know I've got a good 1 wave. Now I'm looking in here. Okay, so now I'm looking somewhere in between. Now this is no longer relevant, because again, I'm making the assumption we go up, we complete the 5th. Now I'm looking for the retracement for the 2, which high probability zone. I'm going to take this off so it doesn't confuse us. High probability zones between the 50 and the 618. Here's my center line again. That, you know, would be something I'd want to be paying attention to. If we go up here, you know, I might have to bump this up a little bit. So let's pull back out to the 1 hour and see how that potentially plays. Right? So, you know, I mean, this is how you construct a trade. It's not quite ready yet, in my view. I mean, unless you were a buyer here and you caught this off the structure, good for you. Nice trade. Now, it's not quite done yet. So I'd be waiting. I'd be waiting to confirm, get that 5th, and then I'd wait for the retracement to be a buyer somewhere between either front running the 50 or half your buy here at the 50, the other half front run on the 618. You know, your choice on where you're going to put your low. I wouldn't give it too much room beyond the 65. I'd rather take, as you often hear me say, I'd rather take the small stop and let the thing reestablish a low here. Do I get a 2? Maybe I get a 2 at the at the 786. Don't know. I mean, the 786 seems to be influencing this market. So maybe the 2 ends up being down here. You know, I've got this support here again. Could be interesting. But you know, so when I'm not sure, I'd rather be out. So rather than take the drawdown from the 50 to below the 786, you know, maybe we're failing. I'd rather take the small loser, reevaluate, see what's happening when I get a better picture to confirm that I've got a 2 low, and then I look for the reaction. Because I still have there's some juicy targets up here relative to this 3rd and this 3rd. You see, so one for the watch list. You know, definitely one to be interested in. So in all this action today certainly gets our attention. So it's definitely trading technically. There's definitely an opportunity coming, just not quite cooked yet. Okay, guys, that's it for that one.